Hi guys, it's Matt here from Maxon UK, and in this short video we're going to be taking a quick look at the cloth tag in Cinema 4D. Okay, it's quite easy to set up and it's got multiple uses, so let's go and have a look at how to get going. So to start with, you need a couple of things. You need something that cloth is going to drape itself over, in this instance a sphere. And then you need something that's going to form the basic of the cloth, which in this place is going to be a plane. So subdivisions are quite necessary when it comes to using this sort of stuff. 20 by 20 is okay, but the more you have, the better sort of deformation you're going to get of the cloth, but the slower your machine will process it. Okay, there are other ways of smoothing things out in a minute, which I will show you. The other thing to note is that the cloth tag doesn't work on parametric objects. Okay, so I can prove that to you. So I can create simulation tag. We shall put a cloth tag on this, and we shall put a cloth tag on the collider. A cloth collider on the sphere. And now if I press play, you'll watch absolutely nothing happen. Okay, the primitive can work as a collider, that's not a problem, but the plane needs to be editable. So having increased my segments, I just press C to make it editable and now press play, and you can see that there away it goes off and it collides and it crashes and so on and so forth. You can see that we've got evidence of these polygons here. It's a bit, I suppose, pixelated is the word. You can see all of the facets that make up my plane. And there are two ways of sorting that out. One of them is going up here to simulate and using a cloth surface. The cloth surface allows you to put your object into the cloth surface and it smooths stuff out. Okay, it doesn't necessarily do an incredibly great job of it. You can increase the subdivisions here if you want to, and that will look a bit better. But again, it's still not absolutely great. One of the good things, however, is this. It's the thickness. You can give your cloth a little bit of thickness without actually having to sit there and extrude stuff. So it means that it's not like a completely flat polygon. Okay, and then the other thing that I find really useful is to put it in a subdivision surface. So holding down Alt and clicking on subdivision surface, holding down Alt will make the subdivision surface a parent of whatever I have selected, and you can see that that now looks much smoother. If I go back to the beginning and press play, you can see that we've got that thickness now, which I can demonstrate even further by sort of ramping that up. I mean, it will look a little bit silly, and there's a point where you'd need probably a soft body tag rather than a cloth one if you want to get thicker than that. But this gives you a rough idea of how to kind of get that going, and it will, you know, settle itself down. The longer your animation is, it will finally slow its way down and settle. There are a few options under the cloth tag here that can be a bit useful. Stiffness, for example, so I'm just going to go to the other end of the scale and put 0. I'm also going to turn off those two for the moment, just so this will work a little bit faster. You can see that it goes exceptionally crinkly, which would look obviously much better with those two on, but you can see that the stiffness allows 0% stiffness allows all of the individual polygons to become, you know, part of this, whereas 100% will enforce it to sort of stay a little bit more like it was, like as if the fabric was stiffer, which is fine. Okay, you always have to go back to the beginning and press play. Again, I'm going to turn those off. Might keep that one on for a little bit. Flexion. It sort of controls how much flex there is between individual polygons. So 100%, you can see that they're being pulled and dragged in a lot more directions than they were a little while ago, whereas 0% flexion will mean that they're a little bit more individualized. They don't pull each other quite so much. Rubber does exactly what you'd expect. I'm going to put it at 50%. It makes it a little bit rubbery and it stretches that out a little bit more. So you can see that it's now dipping far further than it was. You can go to the full extreme. If you go to 100%, then the poor thing will just continue to stretch all over. and it will end up looking ridiculous because the stuff will just keep going. So be careful when you're using that. Okay. Bounce is how much bounce there is for the material when it hits something down here. This has a little bit of spring to it. The sphere also has a bounce and friction attributes as well. So the collider has a little bit of bounce back. So you're going to have to be aware that you may need to change some of them. Again, just to give examples, 100%, and this now really, bounces quite a lot. I'm just going to go back and turn the rubber back off. So it's quite springy everywhere, and if you were to lower that to 0, there is a noticeable difference in the amount it bounces basically. Friction, how much it will sort of impact on there, and how much some of that will be dampened. Looking very similar. You are going to have to play around with this quite a lot to sort of tweak some stuff, but 0% friction, and you can see that it's actually sliding around the sphere a lot more than it was. You can control size as well, so you can tell it to shrink, and this I haven't found works particularly well for me. So it will shrink. As you can see, it doesn't work that well. Or you can increase its size, and therefore it will expand as it does it. Its overall result isn't too bad, but it does look a little bit dodgy to start with. Its mass, you can control a little bit more how much mass areas have. So stuff like, if a garment has a heavy pocket or a heavy zip, that is going to be heavier than the others, so will drape differently. And all of these are configurable with these maps here, so you can put in vertex maps that would allow you to control that this bit's heavier than that bit, so therefore it will drape differently. Okay, so it allows you to add in and give you some real control with that. These are okay on their own, but if you want specific control, then you're going to need to use those cloth tags. So tear at the moment is at 120%. That's sort of like its force value, and it will fall apart quite quickly. If you don't want it to fall apart quite so much, you need to increase that value and then have a look. So there you go. There was a certain amount of force required for it to all of a sudden split. So the higher that goes, the less it will tear, or the less easily it will tear. And you can kind of choose that in a way that, there will be a threshold depending on exactly what it is that you are putting this on. So, and eventually it will tear and then fall apart. You can see that it's broken in some areas there, but not in others, which can give you a quite nice result. Okay, but this is a useful technique that allows you to easily put things, drape fabric over various things, which is quite useful for creating things like tablecloths or maybe bed sheets. Another useful thing is if you want it to stay like this, obviously if you keep playing it will keep trying to settle, then you can simply, once you've got to a frame that you are happy with, you can select the cloth tag and press delete. And then if I go back to the beginning, my geometry is now placed in that area completely. Okay, I hope that was a useful set and quick start guide to the cloth tag. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe or check out blog.maxon.co.uk.